People have been scamming each other from the very start. In fact, the earliest recorded scam was in 300 BC by two sea merchants. They took insurance or a kind of a loan on their ship and cargo. The deal was that they would pay back the lender after selling their merchandise. But the sea merchants wanted to make quick money by sinking their ship so that they won't have to pay back the loan. They, however, were caught and were heavily punished. But today we are going to be looking into a scam which was way bigger than this. The fact that people don't know much about stocks and investments made this guy millions of dollars. At one point of time, thousands of people were lining up to give him their whole life savings. I am in fact talking about Bernie Madoff and the Madoff scam, one of the biggest scams in human history, the man who stole $65 billion. Bernie Lawrence Madoff was born on April 29, 1938 in Queens, New York City. He had two siblings, one younger brother named Peter Madoff and one older sister named Sondra Weiner. Bernie Madoff was well educated. He graduated from Far Rockaway High School in 1956. He studied in University of Alabama before being transferred to Hofstra University, where he completed his bachelor's degree in political science in 1960. Madoff also attended Brooklyn Law School for 1 year, but he dropped out to open his Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities LLC, one which would become the most well-known firm for not so good reasons. Although more famous, Bernie was not the first one in his family to run into trouble with the feds. His mother, Sylvia Madoff, had an illegal broker-dealer firm. The US Security and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, was investigating it because Sylvia and her company failed to report their financial conditions. The SEC had to shut down the firm in 1963. Many say that this was the event that sparked Bernie's desire to scam the world. The family fortunately did not have to pay any fines or serve any jail time. Instead, they closed their firm and started their new life as a plumber and a stockbroker. Bernie met his wife Ruth Alpern while he was in high school. They started dating and would eventually get married on November 28, 1959. She was employed in Manhattan before working in Madoff's firm, and she founded the Madoff Charitable Foundation. Madoff started working as a lifeguard and irrigation sprinkler installer while still in university. After only 1 year into his law study from Brooklyn Law School, he left to open his own firm. In 1960, Madoff founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities LLC as a broker-dealer for penny stock with $5,000 that he earned from working those jobs and a loan of $50,000 from his father-in-law, accountant Saul Alpern. The firm was just barely hanging on at first. In an interview, Bernie said that he would take any scrap he would get. He was not big enough to be with the New York Stock Exchange. He said that if someone came in to sell 8 bonds, other companies would reject it right away, but he would seize every opportunity he would get. Madoff was, as the people would say, market maker, a scrappy market maker during his early years. A market maker is a one who would buy if people are selling and sell if people are buying, and so do not look into how the market is doing. But how do they make profit? Well, they charge a substantially greater amount than the amount they bought it from. The real breakthrough for the company was when they started using computers and algorithms to build electronic trading capabilities. Artificial intelligence, as Bernie would say himself. This would prove to be very big for the company. This would provide massive order flow and would also help businesses by providing insights into market activity. In his own words, "I had all these major banks coming down entertaining me. It was a head trip." This decision to make use of electronics was probably the biggest decision he could have ever made. It put them on the board and made them a trading company that could hang out with the others. They became so big in fact that their company, along with 4 others, processed almost half of New York Stock Exchange order flow. And by the late 1980s, Madoff was reportedly making upwards of about $100 million a year. The business side of Madoff's life was running smoothly. He was in a good position, but with money and power comes greed. He wanted more, so along with the investment company, he was running a side business, one that only a handful of people knew about at that time. It was being an investment advisor. Now, that itself is not illegal, He claimed to people that if they work with him, they would get much higher return. He even went on to say that it would be around 18% if the amount invested is high enough. It was too good to be true. He started off small with only a handful of people, but as the news grew, more and more people were coming to him. They had heard about the great returns he was offering. He even managed to lure in some of the members of the royal family. At first, there were two main members involved in the operation along with Madoff, Avellino and BNS. Both of them worked as funnels to make people come to Madoff. As time went on, they bought more and more people. But to be an advisor for more than 10 people, you would require a license. Avellino warned Madoff that they could get in trouble with the SEC if they did not go to a lawyer. But Madoff was adamant and told them that he had the best lawyers working for him and they did not need to worry. The main reason why Avellino and BNS did not push Madoff enough was because they were earning easy money. They had earned millions of dollars each year by just sending clients to Madoff. They feared that if they angered Madoff, he would replace them. But little did everyone knew, he was pulling off a Ponzi scam. A Ponzi scam is a pyramid scam where you guarantee someone a higher return on their investment. After you pay those initial investment, it builds up your reputation, and with more and more people joining in on the scheme, all the previous investments get funded by themselves. And that is exactly what Madoff was doing. After he built up a reputation and portfolio, people were coming in bulk to invest. It is also important to make the investors keep on investing in him. Otherwise, the scheme would fall apart and he would not have any money to give out. But looking at the amount of people that were investing in him and his great portfolio, people wanted to keep investing. They did not require much convincing, and the ones that wanted to get out of this investment or were unhappy, Madoff's man would threaten them. He gave huge sums of money to charities. This put him in the good graces of many people. He also helped defraud many charitable organizations. People thought that this person could do no wrong. Even though the SEC were looking into Madoff from back in 1992, they had nothing solid enough to make a case for him. Financial analyst Harry Markopoulos was one of the earliest whistleblowers. In 1999, he calculated in the space of an afternoon that Madoff had to be lying. He filed his first SEC complaint against Madoff in May 2000, but the regulators ignored him. Using what he called mosaic theory, Markopoulos noted several irregularities. Madoff's firm claimed to be making money even when the S&P were falling, which made no mathematical sense based on what Madoff claimed he was investing in. The biggest red flag of all, in Markopoulos' words, was that Madoff Security was earning undisclosed commissions instead of the standard hedge fund fee, which was 1% of the total plus 20% of the profit. Markopoulos concluded that the investors that were investing their money were being handled by Barney Madoff and were not being invested. His firm was making bogus numbers and showing the investment results to their client to keep them investing. Although no one could prove that Madoff was scamming the people at that time, people grew wary of him. They started asking questions. But it was not until 2005, when Madoff nearly went belly up due to a wave of redemptions, that the regulators asked Madoff for documentation on his trading accounts. As the selling continued, Madoff could not keep up with the demand, and on December 10, 2008, Madoff confessed the scam to his sons. Both of them went directly to a lawyer who said to turn in their father. And they did exactly that. Bernie Madoff was arrested on December 11, 2008. Unfortunately, both of Madoff's sons died. His eldest son, Mark Madoff, committed suicide, and his younger son died of cancer in 2014. Many of the investors also killed themselves because they lost almost all of their life savings. There were people who invested almost everything they had, believing in what Madoff showed them. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison and forced to forfeit $170 billion in 2009. His 3 homes and 4 boats were auctioned off by the US Marshals. On February 5, 2020, Madoff's lawyer requested that Madoff be released early from prison, claiming that he was suffering from a terminal kidney disease that may kill him within 18 months. However, Madoff remained at the Butner Federal Correctional Institution in North Carolina until he died in April 14, 2021. After he died, the SEC found the paper trails which showed that the company made $47 billion in profit. However, a thorough investigation later, it was estimated that Bernie Madoff alone had amassed a total of $64.8 billion within his 5-decade scam, which he ran from the 60s, according to some documentation that were recovered from his office. So this was the story of the biggest scam in human history, the man who scammed so many people for almost half a century. The only reason he got caught was because people lost faith in him. The SEC was heavily criticized for how they handled this situation. They had a lead with Marco Polo's in 2000. They did not bother to check that lead and could not even find a good evidence to accuse him of the scams.